Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad, Gustafson, and I share 2 books that we love and we think you should read when, Brad?
Read them now. The hashtag is Read This Now, but we want you to read them right now. Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you for asking, Jen. Jen, do you have green on right now?
I do. I have. It's more of like a khaki green, but I do, and I see you do as well.
Top of the morning to you, or afternoon. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy March. And I thought it was kind of mostly only elementary educators who did the green thing, because I've been in district meetings, and a lot of times the secondary people will be like, what's going on? Why are all the elementary principals wearing green? But it's very good to see you in green, Jen.
Listen, as a former secondary educator myself, I can tell you that we, like our students, are just too cool. You know, like breathing is a burden for us. We are so cool. So we can't, sometimes you got to have a poker face when it comes to that fun stuff. I get it. But I think I've always had an elementary heart, even if my, I guess sarcasm leaves me better for secondary people or whatever, but.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Jen, is it okay if I kick things off here today?
Oh, please do.
Okay. So excited. So I got a book from a really good friend. And let me just preface this by saying this connects back to the elementary conversation. So as a former second grade teacher, current elementary principal, you know, the fairy tale remixes, they're cool. But reading those, sometimes they lacked the depth, or maybe I was hoping for more. They were just cool is what it was.
Right.
I've come across now, I don't know if series is the right word, but an author who does fairy tale remixes so well that you cannot set the book down, or when it is on the coffee table or wherever you set your books, it's very hard to walk by and not sneak a few pages, you know. And that's what I found myself in here. So it's a fairy tale remix. And the reason I had to preface that is I didn't want people to write it off like, oh, I've read Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I'm familiar with that. Like this is the updated version. And I could see middle school, high school kiddos falling in love with this, not wanting to put the book down. And same with educators and adults. Like I hope that you'll, I hope that you read it after I talk about this. So the book is Poisoned. And I said I got it from a very good friend, and it's you. Thank you, Jen. So awesome. And I love Jennifer Donnelly now. And
Me too.
I previously book talked her stepsister. No, what was it called?
Yeah, stepsister.
Yeah, incredible. I love this one too. So the premise, and I know you book talked this several months ago maybe, but I think it's so important that I'm just going to do it again, because we really want you to read this now. Like Jen and I, although we love each other, we're not just here to talk. We want you to read these books. It's so good. So anyway, Sophie is the main character, who I guess would be like the comparable to Cinderella, right? No, Snow White, sorry.
Snow White,
Feel free to interrupt me, Jen, you know, as I'm fumbling through this. But here's the thing about her, like her biggest weakness as it's told to her is her heart. And she just cannot walk by someone without giving, or without trying to help them, or without trying to protect them. So people in need, or if someone's being cruel to an animal, whatever, you name it, if they're hungry, she is drawn to that and wants to help. But her stepmother, that's the opposite of what she values. She equates that to being incredibly weak and quite honestly dangerous, because her stepmother is fighting for their kingdom, and she's surrounded by different, I don't know what all the words, like clans or castles.
Factions, kingdoms, kingdom is the right word.
Yep, and she and her experience just knows that weakness and compassion is only going to get you burned and probably lose the kingdom. So there's that tension there right off the bat. Well, very early on in the story, Sophie is attacked, and someone takes her heart. And that sounds very graphic, so you'll just have to decide what age readers or what individual kiddos could handle that or should handle that. I think it's done pretty tactfully, right? But just as an elementary principal, I'm putting that disclaimer out. And long story, you know, she meets 7 enchanted friends. I mean, are you making the
Yes.
connection here to the original? Who help her on this adventure? And a really cool enchanted element to this is they actually build her like one of the I don't want to say dwarfs from the original, but one of the enchanted friends is a clockmaker,
Right.
and they build her a heart that has some issues, and you just don't know. That's the ticking time bomb in the story. You don't know how long the heart's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
But the coolest thing about the heart is there was a valve missing, or it was constructed improperly where it's missing the filter to hold back compassion or actually any emotion. So
Mm-hmm.
if Sophie's mad, she's mad. If she's wants to help someone, it's even 10 times more dangerous than before. She will help, right? Even if it's
Yes.
very risky or dangerous. So over her adventure in the story, as people find out she's still alive, and then a threat to her stepmother, obviously, and want to do away with her, Sophie keeps stumbling into these traps because her heart, that is now even 10
Yeah.
times more compassionate than when it started, won't let her see through the danger. And as a reader, I mean, I don't know how you were, Jen, but I'm like, no, Sophie, no, like, don't do it. Do not do it. And she can't help but do it. And I'm just sitting there, and it's like, it's just this
Oh,
awesome, awesome adventure. And it's a
yes.
story of perseverance and surprises and enchanted magic. And I really, really fell in love with it. And I hope Jennifer Donnelly rewrites newfangled fairy tales for every single fairy tale on the planet.
I
Jennifer,
know.
can you do that for us?
I
Read this now.
know.
Read this
I know.
now.
I know. I'm right there with you. Like, we need a new Hansel and Gretel. You know, like
Yes.
we need like, exactly. I just live for her books, and I just loved it so much. I'm glad you did as well.
I put it like there. I think it's probably a genre new, updated fairy tales. Because I remember a few years ago when we started, I probably book talked Geekerella, the
Yes.
Cinderella,
Yeah.
and I love that. And it sounds so weird to say that. I don't know why it feels weird. It feels weird for me to say that I loved that fairy tale, but I'm starting when they're really, really well done, like the ones we try to
Yes.
talk about together on the show. It's the greatest thing ever. So even if you're
Yes.
telling yourself right now, if you're listening, like, I don't do fairy tales, I really hope you change your mind and give one of these a shot. You'll be so glad you did. So
Listen, I mean, there's a reason why fairy tales get passed down from generation to generation, made into one animated movie after another, get retold and remixed over and over again. There's something universal about the stories and the characters that just make them persistent in not only in, say, like North American culture, but in cultures all around the world who have their own versions of fairy tales. And these stories, and many of them are remarkably similar, get passed down, but there's something enduring and persistent about them. So you shouldn't feel guilty about loving them. Number one, nothing that you love to read is a guilty pleasure, period. It's just a pleasure, the end, no guilt. But the other thing about it is that you're not alone. Lots of people love these stories. And I get really excited when an author who is as genius as Jennifer Donnelly decides to take one of these classic tales and retell it, because in addition to all the wonderful details that you shared, I always like the way her retellings have sort of a girl power, female empowerment element, where we sort of flip, in Stepsister, it was the idea we got to see the story from the perspective of the ugly stepsister, and what sort of creates those narratives. And then in this one too, I think we got an insight into the evil stepmother as well that you don't really get in the original tale. So I love them so much. I'm so glad that you decided to book talk it and that you loved it as well. And I'll sign your petition right now. Let's have Jennifer Donnelly get on.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's the new hashtag. Write this now, please, Jennifer. One other quick nuance I'll regret if I don't say it. Like, the thing that Jennifer does so brilliantly is it's not just a cliche retelling. It's nuanced and unexpected. Yes. And you kind of think, okay, the original, I'm thinking there's going to be an apple and maybe some poison or something, but so unexpected. And you're thinking, where are the 7 dwarfs? So nuanced and not obvious that you're just like, oh my gosh, you're on a roller coaster. and you might think like a day or a week later, like, oh my gosh, that was that from the original.
Yes,
It's just very sophisticated, if
I
that's the right
agree.
word.
I think
Lots and
that's the
lots of
perfect
fun.
word. Hmm.
Yeah.
I love them. That's awesome. I love it so much, and I'm excited that you decided to share it. And it's just, I can't wait. I need to look up and see what she's got coming down the pike next, because she's a genius. And one of the things I'll just say about that book before I book talk my own is that we both love Stepsister so much. I just remember us both just gushing over that book and loving it so much that I had really high expectations for Poisoned, and I was worried that it wouldn't live up. And I felt like it totally did, that it was great.
Yeah, the world building that's involved. I was there. I wasn't reading a book. I felt like I
Yeah.
was right there in it, and that's a really cool thing to pull off.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm going to transition to my book talk now, because I'm as excited, but in a different way, to share the book that I want to share. I have been waiting to share this one because, we have sort of this show has very few rules, and every single one of them we've broken in some way, shape, or form. But one of our sort of unofficial policies is to try to wait until a book has been published before we share it. Sometimes we can't, like sometimes for whatever reason we decide to break that rule, but that's sort of an unofficial thing, so that way our 3.5 viewers can really read it now, can buy it, and or check it out
it's a
from their library.
guideline. It's a guideline.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a guideline that we break sometimes. But I've been waiting to share this one because, and now I can, because it was just published yesterday. Like, it's literally hot off the press. But our 3.5 viewers might remember when that I've book talked several books, either by or illustrated by Corinna Luyken, who is one of my favorite picture book authors ever and illustrators. Last year, Nothing in Common by her and Kate Hepler was one of my like top 5 picture books, not only last year, but of all time. And it really got me thinking about, picture books, all books, but picture books in particular, as being like these like antidotes to a world that feels so divided, picture books that help spark empathy and the idea of connection and love, and to help us understand and appreciate each other a little bit better, especially during a time where it feels like we are struggling with that just as a species, period. So, and to help kiddos instill that sort of habit or disposition. So I wanted to share this book because it's certainly making that list for me. And it's a book I've been thinking about so much since I first read it. It's called The Tree in Me. And I want to show you the beautiful illustration on the front. I mean, it's so gorgeous. And just our friend Mr. Shu, of course, tells us to take off the dust jacket in case there's a surprise. And in this one, there is a beautiful surprise. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. Look at how in the jacket, our main character is actually sat in the sort of being nestled in the arm of a tree. And the book is really one poem that just spans the entire book. It starts out by talking about the tree in me and then describing what the tree in me is. And I'm not going to read the whole book to you, but I wanted to start sort of later in the book and in what I will call like the final stanza of the book, and share those beautiful illustrations and the words, if that's okay, because I just love it so much. This was the spread that when I first read the book literally just made me gasp. And this is one of those books that I wish like we had. It's so, while I want to share it on our show, I don't think the virtual sharing it on camera does justice to just how beautiful it is. But I'm going to go ahead and read this last section and share the pages. This last stanza starts with, "The tree in me is strong, it bends." And then you have a spread. You can see all of these are hand painted. I mean, they're just so gorgeous. And in the spread, it moves to the tire swing where the kiddos are using the tree to experience this beautiful joy. So the tree in me is strong, it bends, and has roots that go deep. And then look at this page, Brad. It's like this whole spread of these trees. They're like these little flowers or mushrooms. And I don't know if you can see all the roots that are drawn down at the bottom. And then to me, I didn't even notice this until like the third or fourth time reading it. At the very top, they're almost transparent. Can you see the feet?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Picture
It's like,
reminds me of the Avatar movie from whenever that came out,
yeah,
from James Cameron 10 years ago or more, maybe it's 20 years ago, but
Mhm.
the just incredible enchanted forest. That's how
Yes.
that looked.
Yes. So that line is, it has roots that go deep down to where other roots reach up towards their own trunk, branch, crown. And you can see this big giant tree trunk and the character there, this beautiful spread. There's the whole forest. It's gorgeous. I just love it. And sky too. And at this point, you can see where the tree in me is made out of sky and roots and a trunk, and it's strong. And look how gorgeous that is. I can't take it. And sky too. And because there is a tree and a sky and a sun in me, I can see that beautiful face, that there is also a tree in you. And that's how the poem ends, and the book ends with this beautiful couple with their seedling together, an adult and a child. And I don't know if you can tell, but look at the fingertips on their hand, the little sprouts coming out of there. It's so gorgeous. And it starts by just sort of talking about all the different attributes that a tree has. You know, we started it where it was strong and deep and had roots, but there's all these fun attributes to begin with, and then ends with this idea that because there's a tree in me that is all these wonderful things, I can see that there's one in you. And just that lovely connection of how we're alike, how there's beauty in us, even though we may look different, that, you know, there's different kinds of trees and the fruit we bear is different, or maybe some of us sprout flowers, but there are some things that are universal and beautiful and wonderful, and we're celebrating, no matter what our differences might be. So it is The Tree and Me by Corinna Luyken. And I think you should just read it right now because I love it so much. There
Beautiful.
we go.
I always hesitate to ask dumb questions that are going to cheapen or bring the conversation to a superficial level. So I hope this isn't a terrible question. The cover was, to me, was reminiscent of, however loosely, The Giving Tree. Like, it just crossed my mind. And I don't know if that's a terrible thing to think, or, you know, I don't know.
I don't know why it would be. You know, I think we all make connections to different books and to stories based on our own experiences with them, with previous ones. And especially, I think there's a lot of our 3.5 viewers out there, there's a lot of people who have positive experiences with the Giving Tree. And so that might actually be a connection that they would make as well. I think there is a message here. There is a message about being outdoors and the calming, peaceful nature of being in nature. I think that's a conversation you could have in this book, which is certainly a message to be had in The Giving Tree as well. So, you know, there's actually no problem. There's a number of books about trees being published this year. It's kind of a theme. It feels like people are latching onto, but this one feels really special to me, and I was excited to be able to share it.
Awesome, Jen. Yeah, in our category of trees, from all the book talks we've done over the years, we've done The Truth About Mason Buttle.
Yes.
That's how you say it. And then I think we did Wish Tree. So Jen and I have a whole tree genre that we've recommended.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that there are certain, I mean, this kind of leans back into our original conversations. There are certain metaphors, certain experiences that are universal, and that I think, especially during a time like now, we're looking for things that are comforting, that feel safe and feel permanent in a way. Like, you know, when you're out in nature and you see these trees that are hundreds of years old, that have been here before we were and will be here long after, during a time of upheaval and uncertainty, that's really comforting, you know, not to mention just the fresh air and the beauty of it, which is also has an effect on us. It gives us a shot of dopamine in the brain. But so it's not surprising to me that books featuring trees are common and universal, just like fairy tales across time and cultures.
Thank you, Jen. Well, if you're interested in the show archives, whether it's checking out past book talks Jen and I have done, or just kind of cruising through the list of titles, you could go to bit.ly/read_this_now. We hope you'll check it out.
Thanks, everyone. Happy reading.